Town of Prescott Valley Work Study Session, January 16th, 2020. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
Councilmember Kendall Schumacher.
Present.
Councilmember Don Packard.
Present.
Councilmember Rick Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Lori Hunt.
Here.
Councilmember Marty Grossman.
Still here.
Vice Mayor Laura Linay.
Here.
Mayor Kilpalguda.
Present.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
Thanks, ma'am. Moving on right to item 3, Prescott Valley Economic Development Foundation. Mr. Mike Paredes. Welcome, sir.
Yay, Michael.
You can record this.
Thank you for coming out even in your misery.
You just want to bring that mic to you a little bit closer.
Make that public. It's okay.
Bring the mic a little closer.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. I'm talking a little low. I'm feeling a little under the weather, so appreciate your patience on. I won't speaking pretty loud this time. So, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Good evening. Mike Paredes, Executive Director of the Prescott Valley Economic Development Foundation. Made a copy of the presentation. You have it in front of you, so I'm going to try and make it a little quick. Just a little overview of what PVDF is a private not-for-profit membership organization made up of local citizens, business, and government leaders. We enrich the overall economy and the community, expand industrial base, and are the marketing and promotion arm of Prescott Valley. Just wanted to show you who our board of directors are and the industries that they represent. We have a very strong leadership in our organization. Of all the organizations I've in my career, this is by far the strongest and the strong leadership that I have here in Prescott Valley with the organization. It's a wide variety of industries that are represented. It's very important for me not to have one side represented more than the other, so we get a really good mix of individuals who I report to every 30 days. Is that the gavel?
Yeah, apparently he disagrees with that.
Just wanted to show you a slide of a couple years ago, the town of Prescott Valley charged me with giving you some goals to increase private investment. The goal 1 and goal 2 are represented by the blue and the orange, pinkish type. I guess it's orange up on the screen, pinkish on the paper. Of 70 investors and or $60,000. Goal 2 is 90 investors and or $75,000 worth of investors. And so, as you can see, we have met both of those goals the last 3 years. And so that's the diligent work internally that we have done, because one of the organization's goals is to increase the private investment, and not to equate the public investment, which comes from our gratitude from you, from the town of Prescott Valley, but try and balance it out and give it more of a private. When I took over the organization 5 years ago, we were at about 20 some investors, if I recall, 27, 29 private investors. And so very happy that today we're at 76, and it's fluctuated over the last few months. It's between 71, 78, and it fluctuates, but it's always in that 70s mark, and we're very happy with that. It's a typo on the side when it's 46% of the membership is private. It's actually about 32%. And so our job is to continuously balance out that number and keep it up above 30%, that balance sheet. In smaller, mid-sized communities, a little more difficult because there's a lot of organizations vying for membership, and so it is our job to educate not only the community, but also, not only the business community, but the community members of what we do. And so I just wanted to show you a couple of graphs of where we stand today and the numbers of meeting those goals that you have set out for me or our organization to achieve. Again, our goal is to ensure Prescott Valley's regional competitiveness again, our job is to create those base jobs, those jobs that are not retail, that are not commercial, that are not the restaurants, is those in the manufacturing industrial sectors. We target those 100% of the time. At times we do market into the medical field, sometimes those educational institutions that we feel that can be an option for us up here and be very conducive and be very worthwhile to locate up here. But more often than none, it is 100% of the time is those industrial manufacturing jobs that we vie for, usually come in with a higher pay, and it usually comes in with very good benefits, and again, attracting that human capital, that individual that is usually at a higher pay, sometimes at $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year, and so those are the types of jobs that we go after. Sorry, I'm just the how. This is how we do it. And this is day in and day out, our office operation between my staff and I and those partners around the country. So we do domestic and international marketing. We do some specific strategic marketing campaigns throughout the region, outside of Arizona, specifically Southern California, the state of California, the upper Midwest, and a couple of places on the international spectrum. We do some trade shows and some site visits directly related to our outreach. One of my pet peeves is not just to have a meeting for the sake of having a meeting in Orange County. I always joke, it's not fun to be stuck on the 405 in LA. It's really fun to be there, and I'd rather have 10 companies that I've worked with for about 4 or 5 months, and they know exactly where I'm at or who we are, what we are, and exchanging that information, than meeting 200 companies that are just, closing your eyes and here we are, and they can last 5 minutes in a meeting. So at the end of the day, when we do meet with individuals, when we do meet with companies, this is, it is specific. It is, we have done the research. We have done our due diligence for a while now to, in order for that, when that moment does happen, when we sit down one-on-one with that company CEO, with that company owner, they know exactly why we are there. We do our own lead generation. This is done by working with various groups. Arizona Commerce Authority is one of our big partners down in Phoenix. But the vast majority of our lead generation comes within, whether it's my personal contacts that I've established over 15, 17 years, or working with private consulting firms around the country that allow us to work with them and work with those companies that we are vying for. And then I listed other companies that we've worked for. Again, these are just old contacts that I have throughout the country and internationally as well that are good friends of mine, and they help me with this specific outreach. Again, our focus regions is California, Pacific Northwest, and a couple of international spectrums. We work with companies who have expressed interest in relocating, issues with high operating costs, viewing Arizona as a potential location. They're looking for a smaller, mid-sized community to locate their operation. And again, if they're not from the West Coast, at times they want to enter a West Coast operation, a West Coast market. And so we are there to tell our local story. Data doesn't lie, and data is free out there that their analysts have researched, but it's my job and it's PVD's job to tell that local story, to tell them how and why companies have been successful here in our awesome community for 10, 20 years. So I just wanted to put up a slide. I took the average of the last 3 years of what clients have requested from us, from the community, when they're looking at possible expansion outside of their location. This is pretty much the story of that first bullet point. I can guarantee you most everybody I speak to, it's usually average about 26,000 square feet facility. One of the most important things that it's existing. The types of companies that we work with are not at that threshold where they can afford to build and or have a gray area of time frame of which to shut down and transfer their entire machinery, hire. I mean, there's always a 8, 9, 10-month period of which is a little gray area when it comes to that transition. And so most often than none, they're looking at existing inventory. And it has to be industrial. It wouldn't fit in a commercial. Nor will I present you a possible project to locate in a commercial building. So again, those are the average building size that we've taken into account over the last 3 years. And it's an interesting story because a lot of times we think we have that inventory just because by frontage you see an old Albertsons or you see an old Sam's Club or you see, prior to the furniture store, an old Kmart. But those are zoned not for these types of, nor will I bring it up to you to change a zoning because it's very important to maintain that for the community. So, so yeah, I just wanted to show that slide. So the next slide I wanted to show you, again, it's just some cost comparisons over the types of discussions that I have with company owners in LA and Orange County, San Diego, about the cost comparisons between our community and theirs. As you can see, land prices are pretty much, and $18 a square foot in Phoenix is and increasing and continuously. Every couple, 3 months, I always go back to my main contacts, which are about 3 or 4 design companies and 3 or 4 architects, and they tell me it keeps growing, and so, and again, obviously, Southern California and California as a state is much larger than that, and so, site building development, it's up to about $128, $130 a square foot now, and in California is hitting that. In Southern California, hitting that $200 a square foot, a little above that a square foot in Southern California. There was a story one time, I was speaking with a company out of Commerce, City of Commerce, which is the industrial part of Los Angeles. And we were talking about these numbers in his office in Los Angeles. And I was making the case for Prescott Valley, and we were doing some cost comparison numbers, and he was looking at a piece of land, not even LA County, not even Riverside County, in San Bernardino County, which is almost the deserts, at $65 a square foot industrial space versus our average of about $5 a square foot. So again, very proud of where we are and our competitiveness versus those companies that I work with. And again, that last bullet point, and this is credit to you as town leadership. Everyone that we located last year was in awe of how quick permitting processes are, and I'm very happy to promote that day in and day out. They know I'm not lying to them when I say that because I always connect them with those companies that have located within the last 12, 24 months. And they tell them that local story of how quick your leadership is and within the town government. Again, we will be doing between 2 or 3 of these events. This is something that came out of our office. It's a business-to-business event in Southern California. We're planning to do 2 or 3 again this year, depending on the budget. This is a picture that we took this August. We had success. We had about 25 companies show up at this event. And again, these are companies that were vetted, and that were invited, vetted, and we knew that they would be a good fit for our region. Each of our communities up here have already budgeted some of their, there's a line item for a California trade mission, and so for 2020, and so we'll be doing some of these this year as well. I was able to leverage some of the funds this time around. None came out of our pocket, so both APS and Arizona Commerce Authority helped us out with this first event. Some of the trade events that we attended last year, was in Portland, the Northwest Machine Tool Expo. San Diego was a warehouse and distribution expo. And then the International Economic Development Conference, of which we try to attend every single year. And so this year I was fortunate enough to send my staff member over, and so she was able to learn that next level economic development. Again, pending budget, we want to attend a few more. There are a couple of the other ones that are would be beneficial for us to attend. Would even like to take one of the companies that we were able to locate from Los Angeles over to help me tell that story. There's different strategies that we have within economic development that allow us to tell that local story. Again, proof of that goes beyond me presenting. It's an actual company that has located into our region. These are the 3 companies that located in the region last year. On the smaller side, but we are very proud of them. Barney's Precision Product came out of Covina, right on the Interstate 10, right there between LA and Riverside counties. It's a CNC shop. Lucy's Machine, it's a true machine shop. They located here in Prescott Valley. Barney's is at the 169-69 corridor on that northwest corridor there, quadrant. And ESI Grips purchased some buildings up in Chino Valley. They are cycling grip manufacturer, made in the USA product. And so we're very proud of those companies that we were working on. Looking forward to 2020, again, like I told you, we're looking at doing 2 or 3 California B2B events. What we want to start doing is having industry roundtables with our local companies, different sectors, and invite those plant managers, plant owners. I'll give you an example of the manufacturers, and have an informal discussion, a couple hours, buy them breakfast, some bagels and coffee, and would like to know where they at, to assist those that are existing. It's all fine and dandy for me to keep going and marketing the region, but it's very important for us to continue helping those who are already here. And so that second bullet point, that is something that we'll be starting this spring. Again, if you have a chance to listen to our podcast, it's another way that allows our not our readership, but our listenership viewers to tell that local story as well. There are a couple of good ones that we've done last year. And so we've done 7 last year. We just started this summer doing them, and so we've gotten some really good response. And you can track where people are listening, and believe it or not, a lot of them from California. So I like that. It's working. So again, pending budget, 2 or 3 possible trade shows again. There's some that I really wanted to attend, and I think we can partner up with the other communities and do the same. Again, we want to increase that private membership as much as we can. It fluctuates. We understand market and economics, and so it fluctuates in the 70s. Again, one of the big things, again, going back to that slide with the average square footage that companies have requested, again, it's my job. There's a couple of investment groups that I've been working with over the last, I say, year and a half, that we've opened up discussion on possible doing a spec building. They're still not there yet. Again, on the industrial side, it's build it and they will come. But then the company's asking, well, where is it? So it's kind of like a chicken and the egg type of deal. And so those discussions are currently taking place with 2 small groups, and hopefully we get some speed on that, and hopefully we get some inventory, because at times there's one inventory, and sometimes it's too small or it's enormously big that it wouldn't fit that clientele. And again, at the end of the day, it's my job, it's the organization's job to create those base jobs and have that proper investment into our community and give our community members an opportunity to stay in our community and work in our community. I myself am from a smaller community in Arizona, so I fully and completely understand the exiting of talent, and whatever we can do as an organization, and wanted to thank you for your continued support and as we move forward. And I see some greener pastures on the horizon, and Hopefully, I'm living up to your expectations, and if not, let me know. But at the end of the day, we're here to increase that economic vitality for for Prescott Valley.
Great.
Any questions?
Michael, I feel like we're torturing you, keeping you up there
That's okay.
at the desk. But does council have any comments for Michael?
Just thank you, Mike.
I have a quick comment question.
Yes, sir.
As we all know, Print Pack is almost doubling their square footage.
Yes.
Would their story help you?
Oh, yeah.
And you're working with them?
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay.
We're looking with Lonnie, and also with we've been in communication with APS and how much of that how much power they've put into it and on that expansion.
That's great.
Most definitely. Yeah, expansion stories sell because that tells a story that they have succeeded over X number of years and they continuously grow.
Yeah. Okay. Just making sure. I figured you would, but
Yes,
I
sir.
had to put it out there.
Yes.
Mr. Tarkowski?
The Mayor and Council, I'd like to go ahead and applaud Michael, NPVEDF, and Leslie for all the hard work they've been doing. And he can't go into the specifics with particular projects that are in the pipeline today, but they're very exciting. And so with that in mind, it's all good. And he's able to, at a moment's notice, completely change his schedule to go ahead and accommodate a prospect that just shows up in town and able to meet their needs. And so I compliment you guys for that. You're very agile in your efforts. And during a meeting yesterday, he even talked about an international company from the European side of things that has shown some interest. It's exciting times, and so I compliment you guys for what you do, and thank you for coming here. I know you're not feeling really well,
Thank you very
so
much. Yeah, it's been
anyway.
about 3 weeks actually.
Yeah, you've soldiered down quite nicely.
So much pain, but yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Larry, very much. Town Council, Mayor, Town Council, thank you very much for your support. And again, to piggyback what Larry has said, 100% of our projects is confidential. I wish I can throw up all that bullet points, but again, it's the agreement between the company and ourselves, of which needs to be maintained confidential. A lot of times they're working with me for a year and a half because at the end of the day, they haven't even told their staff they're moving. So I don't want to be held liable to that. So at the end of the day, again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for your continued support.
Thank you, sir. And I also believe there's a congratulations. You were recently married.
I am.
Yes.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And 3 days later, I got sick.
Thank
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, moving on. Item 3B, camera update. Mr. Casey Danner.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. I'm going to talk for 5 minutes.
I'll believe it when I see it.
I'm actually not feeling well either, so I'm hoping my voice actually lasts that long. I wanted to come tonight and give you guys a little bit of an update on our camera system. This is a system that you approved a little while ago. And we've been diligently working to get all of our cameras up and running. And so I wanted to show you a little bit on that and then tell you kind of where we're going from here. So we have about 70 cameras pretty much now that are up and running throughout the Civic Center, library, and police department. And I have the software pulled up right here. This is all web-based. And so we're able to get to it from any computer in the town. As you can see, I have it actually pulled up on my cell phone, and I can view any and all of the cameras as well. I'll just go to one of the cameras just so you can kind of see what we've got here. This is a camera that we've got over at the library in the teen area. So as you can see, this is a live view of what's going on over there right now. We can choose from standard definition or high definition on these cameras, which is very nice. You can zoom in very well. It's got a good zoom capability on all the cameras that we have. And then you can archive anything that you see. So I think, as I showed you before, basically we can take any time period basically that you want to and view a history, time and day. We've actually used this quite a few times already. We had one person back into an undercover police car in the police parking lot and then left. Luckily left a note before they left, but we were able to use a camera at the PD to be able to get that information for them. We had some vandalism recently in Town Hall in one of our bathrooms that we were able to get them a good picture of the perpetrators of that. And so we've been able to use quite a few times on that. As I told you before, you can view a heat map as well, so that if you're just looking for people in a particular view, you can do that. And then archiving is very easy on these. You just click an archive button here, you click a new archive, and you just basically tell it what date and time you want to be able to archive. It'll bring that file down, and then you just download it straight from the software. So I think the police have found it to be very helpful for their operations, more helpful than the system that we had before. So going very well. As I said, we have pretty much all the cameras within Town Hall, the library, and the PD are pretty much done in the internal areas. What we are working on is some wireless cameras that will be outside. I was hoping to have one of them done for tonight, but unfortunately we're running into a few power problems. Basically, for the wireless cameras outdoors, we have to be able to get power to them. We have to be able to have them plug in somewhere. So Facilities is working diligently to get those areas powered for us so that we can throw some wireless cameras up. The first one that we're actually working on is going to be out at the PD. We're going to have a safe exchange parking spot out there. I have put in the infrastructure for the network so that the wireless signal is good for the parking lot out there. So we're just working on the power right now. That will be the first one that we put up so that people can come and park in a spot and be able to do a safe exchange and know that there's a camera right there. So that's going to be one of them. We're also going to be working on a camera that's out at the amphitheater where we can view events that are going on there. People will be able to go out there and be able to say hi to their friends on it. It won't be too high up for that. And then we have a few also that will be viewing the parking lot from various angles so that we have those available as well. So going very well and should be fully operational very soon. I'd be open to any questions you might have about the system.
I think the safe exchange is a great idea. I know I talked to Chief a couple months ago. We talked about that when he was on my radio show. And believe it or not, there's a lot of people that have asked me on Facebook about that.
Good.
So I think it's a great asset, and we get some good signage up there and advertise it. I think the people are going to love it.
It's more safety.
All right.
Being
Thank
said,
you.
thank you, Mr. Nair.
4.5 minutes. Well done.
Lieutenant Gregory, you're up. Communication radio upgrade update. Okay, is that what you were waiting for? You could have interrupted Casey to get in there.
About that.
Thank you, Leslie.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and who I have with me is Dave Legg from CAFMA, who's helped me with this project. The first phase of the radio system upgrade is nearly complete. Channel 1 is currently operating on the upgraded infrastructure. We currently are working and bringing Channel 2 online with the upgraded system, as well as improving the network reliability. Phase 1 included increasing the number of radio sites from 3 to 6. Channel 1 and 2 will operate off the new CAFMA infrastructure and perform the same. Currently, Channel 2 has a little bit lower quality, and we should have that swapped over to CAFMA next week. So when we work major critical incidents, there's a number of times when we have two major things going on at once. This will help us operate off 2 different frequencies, and we'll have the same reliability and communication with that. Phase 1, which we're currently just closing up, the system inventory. This process included retrieving hardware from multiple sites and locations and verifying if the hardware was functioning properly. This equipment included microwave radios, VHF receivers, transmitter, and VHF photers. The system redesign. In order to create a reliable system, the VHF system that we had to be redesigned from the ground up. This included many hours of research, procurement, and planning. And Dave and Tony spent most of the time on that. Infrastructure upgrades. This process included installing new infrastructure and equipment at multiple sites, locations, including, we went from 3 tower sites, which were Prescott Country Club, the police station, and Glassford, to 6. And now we have radio sites at CAFMA, which is at Station 50 at Valley View and 69, Station 54 at 169 and 69, Station 55, which is at Sarah Jane and Fane Road, Cap 59 at 89A and Viewpoint, along with the Glassford site and the police department site. We did away with the country club site, but with those 6 additional sites, when an officer keys up in the north end of town, he keys up whatever system that hears him the best. That voter will pick that and then broadcast that transmission. So we've seen significant increase in coverage for the patrol guys. The infrastructure included new microwave radios, new VHF receivers, new VHF antennas, and telecommunication equipment. System programming and deployment. This process included programming and deploying all system components and verifying their optimal functionality. Phase 2, which we're going to go into now, since we got just about phase 1 closed up, it will be increasing our radio sites to 3 sites. Phase 2 will include increasing the number of PVPD radio sites further from the 6 to 9, as well as improving dispatches connectivity. The new sites will be Spruce, Francis, and then Table Mountain, which is north of town and east of Chino Valley. So all the growth and stuff we have going on at the north end of town, that'll help us increase our coverage, radio coverage there. Phase 3, which we're looking at the completion date of July 21, which will be a simulcast system. Right now we broadcast strictly out of Glassford. Once we get phase 2, we'll have another broadcast point, which is will be Spruce Mountain site. So that'll help us anything going down in the south corridor of 69 down toward I-17. Additional radio site, we're looking at Spring Valley. They have a site out there that we can use, which will help our communication all the way up 69, just in case we have to go down in those areas. We have purchased 85 new Motorola APX 6000 portable radios for all our sworn and ACO officers, and they've all received those radios, replacing the old Motorola 2500s. So overall, we have a significant improvement in radio communication. No outages. We have received positive feedback from our patrol officers. Yeah. CAFMA has been great with working with the problem with the radios issues within the fleet. They have been very responsive and a great partner on this project. And I can tell you, we had an officer out on Joan, 3700 block of Joan, and something went wrong with his radio. I called CAFMA and said, hey, we have an issue in this area. They asked for the car. Within 24 hours, they repaired all the damages to the car. So they're actually going to go through our existing fleet, make sure that they're functional. And it's nice because we have them right in town. We can respond over to the training site for CAFMA and get our repairs done. And then if there's any issues with our portable radios and whatnot, CAFMA's always there to help us out. And they're just a phone call away. And if we have anything happen after hours, they've been very responsive and they've been a great partner in this radio project. Any questions?
Go ahead.
I have one. Do we still have any dead spots or places where these aren't being effective?
we haven't had any desk spots since we
Good.
transferred over to their system. And
Okay.
if there's any issues, they've been very quick to respond. And
Awesome.
go out there. But I've gotten really good feedback from the guys, and trust me, if there's a problem with the radio system, cops are the first one complaining about it.
Awesome. Thank you.
I just want to compliment you on the partnership and thank you. It's really important and it strengthens both agencies.
Mr. Tarkowski?
Just as a comment for mayor and council, and congratulations to the team that you've created on this. The reason I say that is 2 years ago, when there was a request to come in to do some substantial expenditure to go ahead and get the radio system up, quite frankly, I went ballistic. I've been hearing for 31 years our radios weren't working, and then we'd spend a lot of money on them, and then 2 or 3 years after that, we still have dead spots and things like that. So congratulations. You have accomplished something that has taken better than 31 years to do, and that is eliminate the dead spots and have a system that's in place once and for all that works. What a concept.
Thanks, guys. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilman Packard.
Yeah, I'd like to. The radios you have now are, what, a year old, technologically wise. Is that correct?
Yeah,
They are.
we just issued them out 6 months ago.
6 months, okay. So when do they go out now? I mean, as far
the
as
last ones-
obsolescence goes, because I've been in electronics a long time, you figure at least a year you're going to start hearing about these newbies. But
Right. The APX 2500s that we carried before lasted 10 to 12 years. They were really good radios, but they didn't support them anymore. So when we had radios
Yes.
go down,
Okay.
we couldn't.
thanks.
Awesome. Thanks again, guys. Nice job. All right. Parks and Rec, master plan. Mr. Whitty.
Before our officers and our firefighters get out the door, I just wanted to compliment them each. They make some mean hot cocoa. They know how to light a bonfire, and they've got really chewy, awesome s'mores. So thank you guys for your help during New Year's Eve celebration there.
Nice.
So before Mike comes up, I wanted to let you know your consultant, our consultant, has been working hard in making sure that your staff's working. We're going to be discussing some items tonight related to inventory items and levels of service. That's going to be Mike's focus area, but also some very interesting and intense strategy conversations that have been happening at all levels of our staff, all the way up with our town management. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce again Mr. Mike Setz from Pros Consulting on our Parks and Rec Master Plan.
Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I am feeling well. My voice is fine, so I'm going to go for 30. No, I'm fine. Just want to let me pull this up here very quickly for you, and then we'll dive right into it. So tonight, we really want to, as Brian mentioned, we really wanted to this is going to be a little bit more technical in nature. What we've done so far is kind of present you the overview of the process, as well as the prioritized community needs. And that, of course, is the foundation for your park and recreation system going forward, part and parcel, because parks are meant to be used. Good parks being used means less issues with regards to vandalism, crime, graffiti, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, you want to maximize utilization of your public spaces. So we'll just very quickly just flip through a couple of slides to re-engage you with regards to the prioritized needs. Talk about park classifications, simply because a park is not a park is not a park. They different sizes, different amenities, different experiences, different lengths of experience. And then the meat of it is really around levels of service, and we'll have that conversation and really look forward to your feedback with regards to this, because it certainly has a direct impact on recommendations, the capital improvement plan, funding strategies, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of a nexus point for the project. So just very quickly, we divided the community needs up into three kind of buckets: recreation programs and services, facilities, amenities, and then, of course, art and culture. And we've just divided them up into high, medium, and low. And as I flip through these, just as a reminder, the high means that people find it important and needed, but there's also a high unmet need. In other words, they want you to do more of that. When we start to look at low, there's two major components to it. If you're not doing it, don't spend a lot of resources doing it, because people don't have a high demand for it. Or if you are doing it, you're pretty much doing it at the level that the community expects or wants you to, so don't invest in any more resources associated with that. So we have high, medium, and low for programs and services. We have high, medium, and low, again, for park facility and amenities. And we have, of course, art and culture. And there is a lot of synergy between the recreation programs and services as well as art and culture. So the long story short of it is you all are kind of maximizing your resources between art and culture and recreation programs and services as it works today. So park classifications. These are very similar to what is actually in your general plan, maybe a little bit of terminology difference. But mini parks are really just small locations, maybe the size of a larger residential lot. And they have very limited use, maybe a playground on it, maybe a gazebo. It's more of a respite location, not a huge high activity area. Neighborhood parks can range from typically 3 to 4 acres in size up to about 15. An example of this for you all is the most recently opened Santa Fe Park in Granville. That is a neighborhood park for you. Community parks, length of experience is a little bit longer. Mountain Valley Park is a good example of a community park in your system. A little bit larger in size, can be anywhere from 10 to potentially up to 300 acres in size. And the length of experience with these is a couple to 3 hours, maybe up to a half a day. Special use parks are exactly what they're intended to say. An example of special use park for you all is Civic Center Park right next door. It's really kind of geared to just special events. But standalone dog parks, standalone skate parks, archery ranges, those kind of things have very singular, but as the title says, very special use associated with it. Open space conservation lands. Fain Park is an example of this for you. It's really meant to be undeveloped, kind of left as is, not a whole lot of human consumption for it. One thing to note at the bottom that I have in bold is that we are not developing a population-based level of service target for it, because it's really about resource location and opportunity. It's not so much that you need X number of acres of this kind of property in your system for every 1,000 people. And then greenbelt trails, greenbelts and trails, again, another classification. It's basically a linear park that is really meant to kind of carry trails on it and move people from location to location, not on roads. And again, we're not using this in a population-based situation. It's really about connectivity. All right, so the meat, levels of service. I will not read all of these to you, but there's a lot of variables that go into calculating recommended levels of service. The very first one for you is trying to create alignment with your general plan 2025. And I'll show you what that looks like in a couple of slides forward. And then a couple of things of note. We've presented a lot of information around demographics and trends. All of that is kind of factored into this. But prioritize community needs is a huge driver, as well as financial sustainability. Whether or not you can actually build it is one thing. To be able to operate it and maintain it is another. So that is a significant factor in making sure that your system's right size, not just for what people want to do, but so that you actually have the resources to be able to sustain it at a high level. As a reminder, your population is currently at about 50,000 folks and expected to grow to about 95,000 folks within the next 15 years. Please note that 100% of this growth is expected to be in master plan communities. And this has a direct impact on how your community is going to grow and how master plan communities help to complement the park and recreation system here in the town of Prescott Valley. So currently, this is the state of your master plan communities that provide park and recreation amenities to its residents and or the town as a whole. As you can see, residents of master plan communities make up about 40% of your population, and this is at a 66% build out. So to kind of put this into context, if we're making the assumption that 100% of your growth over the next 15 years is going to be all master plan communities, that 40% of your population is going to grow to over close to 60% of your population in 15 years. In a nutshell, what we're saying is that 30,000 people in your community are not going to live in master plan communities in 15 years, as is the case today. So that number is going to remain relatively static. So that's an assumption that we need to make with regards to the master plan communities as well as level of service. So there is an impact, and as I mentioned, it's about a complementary impact. We know that master plan communities provide park and recreation amenities to their residents, as well as potentially, in some cases, to the town as a whole. As part of this exercise, we did due diligence to try to be as accurate as we possibly can with regards to the park and recreation amenities that master plan communities have within their geographical boundary. We also recognize that master plan communities, in some cases, only provide recreation amenities to their residents. So their resident clubs, or kind of the best way to say it is they kind of have a recreation facility campus. It includes that clubhouse, the swimming pool, the tennis courts, and pickleball courts, and those are only accessible to those master plan community residents, not the community as a whole. So in essence, it's kind of private. Almost feels a little bit like a country club associated with the master planned HOA fees. So when we start to speak about levels of service assumptions, we're starting with your general plan. As you can see, your general plan is very dialed into two very specific park classifications, community park and neighborhood park, at 3.4 acres per thousand. The town's overall goal in the general plan is to provide 6.8 acres of parkland for every 1,000 people that live in your community. That is one assumption that we're making to be consistent with the general plan. Second set of assumptions is to recognize that your community is going to grow by 45,000 people in the next 15 years. All of that growth will occur in master plan communities, and we recognize that master plan communities in some cases will provide park and recreation amenities only to their residents. So when we talk about level of service, we're going to take a three-pronged approach. What is it that master plan communities should provide to their residents going forward? Simply to say, how will master plan communities' growth pay for itself in terms of park and recreation amenities? The second is to say, what are the set of amenities and or park acreage that the town needs to focus on for just the 30,000 people that do not live in master plan communities? The third assumption or the third approach is to say there are still going to be park and recreation amenities that the town must provide for the entire 95,000 people. Couple of examples: athletic fields, athletic field complexes, skate parks, disc golf courses, the things that take up large pieces of land. And that is all going to be kind of positioned within community parks going forward. So those are the three assumptions that we've kind of made as I start to scroll through this. So what we've made an opportunity or an attempt to do is to identify all of the master planned acreage and identify the level of service that the master planned communities are providing to their residents. Use that as a benchmark to say, if the growth is going to be 95,000 people and all of this growth is going to be within master planned communities, that here's a starting point for you to say, whether it be new development agreements or potentially revised development agreements, here's a point in time that says master planned communities are going to be really about developing neighborhood parks within their master planned communities, and these are the elements or the targets, the type of things that should be included in those master planned communities, in those parks. So it's the dog parks, it's the outdoor basketball courts, their recreation facilities, swimming pools, all of the same things that they're currently providing today, but things that typically fit within that kind of neighborhood park acreage. The second set of assumptions is to say, what does the town need to do to provide a level of service for those very similar amenities, the neighborhood park, community park level, for just those 30,000 folks that are not living in master planned communities? So we've established all of what that inventory looks like, created recommended levels of service based on that methodology, and said, here are the things that you need to look at when you start considering the development of further parks just to serve those 30,000 folks. And then the third prong is that 95,000 population target. So what are those things that you're going to focus on when you think about the development of community parks, and in particular, Agua Fria Park? What are the things that you absolutely need to include within that park or within those smaller parks within that 300 acres? It's the archery ranges, it's the baseball fields, it's the big swath of land that you're not going to ask development communities or master plan communities to provide to your community. And then we've just kind of summarized it and said, here is where we're at in terms of everything that the town needs to do for a combination of the elements for just the 30,000 folks, as well as a combination of the all of the elements that the community as a whole is going to partake in. The long story short, the one thing that I want to point out that I think we kind of need to make a recommendation that will tee up your next general plan is there's a lot of acreage potentially by using a 3.4 acre per 1,000 folks in neighborhood parks. That number would be that you would need to grow neighborhood parks by almost 280 acres. To put that in perspective, Santa Fe Park is about 14 acres. So are we really saying that you should be looking to develop 20 Santa Fe parks? The answer I would kind of say is no. So my thinking is that we look to reduce the number of acres in the neighborhood park category and up the ante in the community park category that very much aligns with what the size of an Agua Fria Park would be, which is close to 300 acres. So the long story short of it is that if we do that, it reduces the impact that master plan communities have to develop in terms of neighborhood parks, but it also potentially increases the amount of DIFs or developer impact fees for community parks that can then help go to construct Agua Fria in the future. And so playing around with some numbers, it might be that the number for neighborhood parks is around 2 acres per 1,000, and the number for community parks is a little bit closer to 5, with the understanding that we're still going to target that 6.8 acres per 1,000, and that we think we'll be able to reach a pretty good balance. We're not asking or making the recommendation that you make an amendment to your general plan now, but that this is something that would roll into your next general plan update. Then what we will do is to kind of, and this is really easy in terms of an exercise, but kind of taking those levels of service and creating equity mapping to them. And it's pretty self-explanatory, because when you look at these maps, just to buzz through them very quickly, the areas that you don't have any parks are your growth areas. So in essence, you already know where your community is going to grow. And so you can kind of see that from a neighborhood park perspective, in the areas that you potentially have growth, all of that yellowish is all zoned residential in your community. And so that, of course, is where your parks will grow. So whether it's neighborhood parks or community parks, special use parks, you can kind of see when you go through these maps that simply that is where parks are going to get developed. You have good coverage right now based on where your population is and where your population lives now. But as your population grows in the future, you're obviously going to look to create coverage and equity and accessibility for all of your different park classifications in your growth areas. So our next steps, finalizing park and recreation program assessment, including programs as well as park maintenance. We're going to complete a capital improvement plan in advance of completing the master plan as a whole, so that it can help feed the budget requests for the upcoming budget cycle, and then start to dive into funding strategies. We've already kind of touched on this a little bit, but we're going to circle back on it to make sure that when we start talking about level of service, we need to nail that first, because that has a direct impact on what that capital improvement plan looks like for the next 5 to 10 years. Questions? Makes sense?
Start on the end with Councilwoman Hunt.
Thank you. So I got a little lost, I think. I know what you said, but when you said reduce neighborhood park requirement to 2 and increase community park requirement to 5.
Close to 5, yes.
Close to 5. Are you using community park and regional park simultaneously?
Yes,
Okay.
And I think the understanding is that we're not going to use a regional park classification for you, and here's why. We feel that Agua Fria Park will not be fully developed in one phase.
Right.
It's going to take place over the course of probably a couple of decades. So you're going to end up with a park. And then at some point, you're going to end up with another park that is a whole different purpose. So though we're right now talking about it as one park, I can see in the future where it becomes 5 or 6 30 to 50 acre parks, so that when we're talking 20 years from now, that is, and that will allow you the ability to fund it appropriately, but also phase it in such a way that it gives you a fighting chance of being able to add to your system and maintain it as your community grows. So the idea is what comes first, what comes second, what comes third, as part of a multi-phased approach to Agua Fria.
I like that a lot. And I want to compliment you. I was on Parks and Rec when we hired you, and I was really impressed at that time, but I'm even more impressed now with what you gave us here. And then my next question is, I know you're going to start on funding recommendations. You're going to look at our diff, because
Yes.
we've asked staff to do a nexus or look at our diff requirements and maybe change them a little bit.
Well, here's the rub. The rub with your diff is that it needs to at least be consistent with your levels of service associated with your general plan.
Right.
And so what you charge for your neighborhood park right now is based on 3.4 acres per thousand, as well as then the capital improvement cost associated with that. Same thing with 3.4 acres of community parks. So I think it's safe to say that we can develop a capital improvement plan for neighborhood parks and community parks, but at the end of the day, we still need to land the plane on that level of service, because that has a direct impact to how much you develop in terms of neighborhood parks and how much you develop in terms of community parks. And the biggest question that we just really haven't asked right yet is are you in a position, or would you be willing to be in a position to amend your current general plan to adopt a new set of level of service that in turn would potentially trigger an update related to your Nexus study? So
or it can be built into our update that
Or be
is
built into your
mandated
update.
within 5 years. And
Correct.
We can do that one.
So it's a matter of, do you want to do it now or just build it into the update? And I think our recommendation is to build it into your update, because you're going to go through a whole host of other things that potentially have some impacts with regards to Parks and Recreation. That's the wisest way to do it. So great information, but maybe sit and wait a little bit.
Councilman Grossman.
Yes, you've given us a lot of information, and as you alluded to, that a lot of it will be useful when we start talking about the next general plan. Would we have access to get this PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, actually, I'm happy to pass it along to you, but for you all as well as the members of the community, we will post this on the project website tomorrow.
Great, thank you.
It's planpvparks.com. Everybody will have the opportunity to see this exact presentation as of tomorrow.
Will it be available through the Prescott Valley? Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure I know how to ask this question, so bear with me.
Sure.
It has to do with our neighborhood parks and what happened to them here in Prescott Valley during the downturn of the economy. We've done a good job of catching up and trying to get them and keep them where we want to. I didn't hear anything in here to deal with those kind of scenarios.
Correct.
I'm concerned about that.
Okay.
Because we will have another downturn of the economy.
No, I agree. And so the best way to answer your question is part of our capital improvement program. It will be divided up into 3 buckets. That very first bucket is the bucket that you're referring to, which is life cycle replacement of amenities within your system. It doesn't necessarily impact the numbers or the quantity. That's more about the quality and the condition rating. And so we've already kind of gone through an assessment exercise and have gone park by park with staff to say, what are the things that we need to hone in on to replace over the next 10 years within every park? And then our charge is to put a dollar figure to that escalates over time. So that will be addressed in kind of the next round of information that we bring to you. But what we want to be able to bring to you is a full capital improvement plan, and the conversation around level of service impacts that full capital improvement plan. But to your point, Council Member, that will be a part of the next round of information that we bring to you.
Okay, I just want to make a further statement about that. I want to make sure that everyone understands that during the downturn of the economy, the neighborhood parks get utilized more. all of the parks get utilized more. So I consider it high priority.
Okay.
Great job on this.
Thank you.
I just hope that I come from an area where Plan A doesn't always work out, and it's always
Right.
good to have a Plan B and a Plan C. And I hope that we're not putting all our eggs in Plan A being Agua Fria Park, because I've heard of Agua Fria Park for 20 years. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. For 20 years, I've heard about this unicorn of a park, which sounds amazing.
Right.
But it was 20 years ago I heard this. And hopefully we have a Plan B to modify what we have going on. And I know land doesn't grow on trees, and we need to understand where we're going to put things. But we can't keep relying on where Agua Fria Park is going to be. Mr. Tarkowski, I'm sure you have a comment on this.
Well, actually, the genesis of Agua Fria Park happened 28 years ago.
Oh, there you go.
That was the original drawing of Agua Fria Park. When it became abundantly clear that Mountain Valley Park was which is 68 acres, was at some point in time going to fill up. Just one comment that Mike omitted, although we talked about it extensively yesterday, that you forgot, which was economic development that is created by our community/regional park, but they're community parks.
Right.
And that is something that I think our rough analysis was that it brought better than $5 million of tourism dollars to our community last year alone, between softball tournaments and soccer tournaments. And so when we have that community park, i.e. Agua Fria Park, which, by the way, in 2 weeks we're meeting with State Land Department and one of our developers on Agua Fria Park.
Again, sir, I believe it
and
when
we
I
do
see
have
this.
it memorialized in a intergovernmental agreement with State Land Department, so we're reminding them of that. But moving away from the details, I really want to thank Mike and his firm for the very thorough job they have done. What we have had in the past has been a look at population, projected population growth, that equals X number of acres and or square feet of amenities. They have gone much deeper than that, and realizing that for all intents and purposes, the core of our community, the original town site, is not going to grow anymore in the next 15 years of our planning horizon. There's no more lots left, or very few, I should say. It will change with verticality when you go through a renewal. But until that happens, the core of the community is not going to grow. And so the master plan communities, as Mike has said, have done a really good job of amenitizing their projects and just taking a look at one little detail, and that's swimming pools. For a community of 50,000 people, the pool at Mountain Valley Park would be incredibly inadequate. But guess what? It's not. Because in our master plan communities, you have 7 pools surrounding the core of our community. And so they have taken the pressure off of traditional infrastructure. And similarly, the YMCA moving forward will accomplish some of the same things. So anyway,
I believe,
Mike, thank you very much. You guys have done a great job.
I agree with Mr. Tarkowski on the pools for our master plan communities, but the problem is those master plan community residents, they're able to flood out and use Mountain Valley Park for baseball or soccer, but no one from anywhere else can flood back into Granville and use a baseball field because they don't have one.
Correct.
So that becomes a challenge there.
And that's the nexus for saying, okay, what our master plan community is going to provide. What do you need to provide just to mirror what master plan communities are doing for their residents? Sure. And then what do you need to do for exactly what you just said, all the folks that live in master plan communities that go and use your Mountain Valley Park. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we kind of have this 3 levels of service teed up to recognize that it's a complementary relationship, but also to say that It provides some guidance for development agreements with future master plan communities, but it also provides some guidance with regards to what it is that you all are going to do for just the 30,000 people, but also the 95,000 people. So it's kind of that three-pronged approach for you.
I believe Councilman Anderson had something.
Yes, I do. I just wanted to mention that when we first started talking about having this work done, we really didn't know what questions we wanted to ask of you. So I think we probably made your job doubly tough, because you not only had to figure out what questions we wanted answered, but then try to answer them for us. And I want to commend you for the job that you've done thus far, because you have presented us with exactly what I think I needed to know so far. And I appreciate that, because that gives us something that we can work on certainly into the future. And I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilwoman?
I wanted to ditto that also. And then I wanted to know, is there any type of playground equipment that's more popular than others, or was anything overused, or kids having to wait in line for any specific thing?
The playground industry has does kind of what, in its own way, it kind of creates its own trends. And so they, over a course of time, have a tendency to phase things out, which almost forces you in a position to buy the new and greatest stuff. And so I'm a huge believer, being a recovering Parks and Recreation director, to offer throughout your system a variety of different types of playgrounds, so that it's not the same experience. And so you do have the modular stuff, which is the typical stuff that you see, but then there's also a lot of climbing apparatus that has really emerged over the last 10 years. Upside down netting that kids can just climb up on and sit on, and so on and so forth. But that is an industry in and of itself that has an opportunity, that you always have an opportunity to engage in, to learn the newest and greatest stuff. They're usually out in front of it, but it also, at the end of the day, it behooves them as a business to keep themselves fresh and vibrant in introducing new things as well.
So I just wanted to say, I go by the Santa Fe Park quite often, and one day I just noticed the pure joy on the kids' faces that were in the big swing that's the big round.
Oh, yeah.
And I kept thinking, I want to go down there and do that. And so I was wondering, too, is there any way to maybe get some porch swings around areas so that the people that are waiting on the kids could also swing? Something like that, you know.
And I was recently just in Louisville, Kentucky, and a park that sits on the pedestrian bridge that used to be an old railroad that crosses from Kentucky into Indiana. And one of the things that I noticed, to your point, is that, you know, you think about the porch swing. They had several of those larger, kind of very sturdy porch swings that overlooked the river, but also were within view shed of the playground, and it gave the adults, and not just young adults, but older adults, the ability to kind of just swing, but not swing like you do on a playground, while at the same time observing what was going on with their kids. And so I thought that was a really unique feature that I made note of as a Park and Rec professional that I probably wouldn't have, thought about if I hadn't seen it. So it was a really cool idea.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Sure.
If there's no other questions, again, sir, great job.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Thanks everyone.
To staff, for Brian and Larry, for the opportunities to really kind of over the last couple of days pick their brain with regards to this, and they were very instrumental in helping kind of pull this together in this format as well. So thank you.
Thanks, sir. Have a great night.